Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. 2 wins is a winning streak. I don't care what anybody else says. 2 wins is a winning streak, Ray. So Caniac Nation is walked back themselves from the ledge a little bit. We're getting scoring from the people we were hoping to see some scoring from. We will get into that soon. But we have a really cool guest today. But before that, how are things up in the Great White? Is it the Great White North yet? I mean, it's late October.
It is indeed. We got 10 to 15 centimeters of snow here earlier in the week.
That's like 7 inches.
Yeah,
6 inches for the rest of us.
Yeah, there you go. And but as I've stated many times before, in Calgary, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. We have a Chinook kind of blowing through, and all of the snow that we have now presently will be gone probably by Tuesday. Things are warming up, and just above zero, 7 degrees.
It was 80 degrees here yesterday, man.
Yeah, so it's crazy, but it'll make things interesting up north for the Heritage Classic, which is will be getting going here in about 5 hours or so. So yeah, it'll be exciting, but we're not here to talk about the Oilers and Flames, who stink right now. Let me tell you, they're terrible.
It might be the worst Heritage Classic in recent memory. No offense, guys.
It might. Well, you know what? They'll always be hot, right?
I was going to say, if nothing else, it's going to be a fill 'em in or run 'em up kind of day. It's going to be a fill 'em in kind of day.
They'll be knuckle chucking, to be sure. But you know what? That's not why we're here. We got we've got a guy in the Storm Cellar who I've wanted to talk to and visit with for a long time, and it's fantastic. And because you have a history with him, normally this is the time where I do the introductions. I'm like, no, I saw and witnessed you two talking, and man, oh man, the history's there, and I love it. So you get to do the intro, my friend.
Okay, very happy to have this person on. He's been on a number of podcasts. He works like 4 or 5 jobs and does extras and has a family and does cosplay. And he's maybe the busiest person I've ever met. And we are very, very happy to help, to welcome to the Storm Cellar somebody. Yeah, we've been friends, I think, for a long time. We don't really see much of each other, or anything since I moved to Massachusetts. But the Canes in-arena announcer, because I don't know your actual title, but Wade Minter is here. Wade, we are glad to finally have you on. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, yeah. So, yeah, the official title, I think, if you're going to get pedantic about it, is Arena Public Address Announcer. But I'll answer anything, announcer, talking guy, Miss Jackson if you're nasty. I pretty much know who you're talking about.
Hey, you, probably a lot.
A lot of that.
Oh, you're that guy, yeah.
Or Minter. Like Minter. I don't have first name with the Canes. I have first name with my family. I don't have first name with the Canes.
Yeah, there you go.
Like Cher.
Like
or
Cher.
Adele.
See,
nice.
Right, like Madonna. Like, you're in very high company with having one name,
go.
sir. Yeah.
Mononyms are cool.
Yeah, I love it. So where do we want to start, Ray? So for Wade, he's probably like, oh, no, this is going to be like, I get asked this every time, but how did you get into hockey? So we happened to meet in 99, which is the year that we were just talking about. You moved to Raleigh. Right. It was also the year that the Hurricanes moved to Raleigh, which feels like destiny to me. I'm just saying, I did post the pictures from the home opener against New Jersey, October 29th, 1999. Wade was in the back of, I think it was my truck.
It was your truck, yeah.
With Chris Hahn, Greg, shout out to Greg Orcutt, and Allie Orcutt, good friends of ours, still probably, my best friend. We had a great time that night. I remember we were on the news. I'm trying to get the WRAL footage.
Okay.
When they interviewed us, and have not yet. But give us, so were you into hockey before you moved to Raleigh, or go through for us? How did that all shake out?
Yeah. So I am, like a lot of people here in town, not originally from Raleigh, but I'm not from too far away. I grew up just over the Virginia, North Carolina border, in a very, very tiny tobacco growing town called Kenbridge. Absolute middle of nowhere, 2,000 people in the town. You had to drive outside the county to get to a McDonald's or a 4-lane road, things like that.
Been there.
So I was not a hockey fan growing up. Did not have any of that culture around me. I was a baseball fan, a very bad baseball player. But hockey was that thing that occasionally, if I was flipping around trying to find a baseball game, I'd see on ESPN and be like, I have no idea what's going on here. Let's find another channel. And so, I was aware of the concept, but nothing of the practice. So fast forward to graduating from high school in the early 90s. I ended up going to college at William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. And most of my friend group from William & Mary were all in-state kids from the Northern Virginia, D.C. area. And they happened to be all hockey fans. They all happened to be Caps fans. And so I just kind of through osmosis started picking up some of the sport from them. Ended up playing on a couple intramural floor hockey teams. Didn't know what I was doing, but it was super fun. I think my start of my senior year in college, I went up to DC to see some of my friends who graduated and went to a NHL preseason game at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland. So I don't remember who they were playing, but I was there and that was super fun. Being in Williamsburg, which is roughly halfway between like the Richmond area and the Hampton Roads area, I did end up going to see a few ECHL games with the Richmond Renegades and the Hampton Roads Admirals. John Brophy's Admirals team, Total Goon League. But I really started as a fan to get an appreciation for the sport that way. So, kind of fast forward a couple years, I'd bounced around the Northeast for a couple years after graduation. Ended up moving to Raleigh in February of 99, like sight unseen. I'd had a relationship end up in Delaware where I was with a girl. That ended. I didn't have any reason to be in Delaware. Not that anyone probably does have any reason to be in Delaware, regardless of their relationship status.
There's a great rest stop on 95, sir.
That is true. It's small but wonderful. Home of
it might be shopping. The only reason to be there, but it is worth the trip.
So I moved to Raleigh, just again, sight unseen. I've heard good things about Raleigh. I need to get out of Delaware. Maybe I'll go there. And so, as you said, that was the year that they were finishing up in Greensboro. There was some hype around the team coming to Raleigh. The ESA was getting built. I ended up finding a friend group who liked hockey. And through that, ended up at that first game. Maybe at the start of the second period because they didn't really know how to traffic back then. We were sitting in the back of Bear's car, Bear's truck, just not moving. Not moving.
Because nobody knows but you and I.
Okay. So we're sitting back there and we eventually got into the building. So that's super fun. I've got my ticket hanging up back there somewhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, so, I went to several games during the 99-2000 season, ended up reconnecting in, late 99, early 2000 with my high school girlfriend, now wife. And so she grew up in the same town as I did. So she had basically the same kind of hockey experience, which was none. And so, when she and I got back together, I was like, let me take you to a hockey game. I've been going. They're super fun. She's like, what, hockey? That's stupid. Why would I want to watch hockey? And I took her to like 5 games and she was just like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. So from there, became a very dedicated fan, sitting up in section 328 for a really long time with all my improv friends. When my kids were born, started bringing them to the games, and the story continues from there.
I love that you kind of really cut your teeth in the ECHL. And if Zach's listening, it's the East Coast Hockey League. I don't care what they say; it's still the East Coast Hockey League. And that's one thing that whenever I meet new friends, I don't know how you feel, but I tell them it's great to go. If you want to experience hockey, go to a game and try and sit in the front row or two. And it doesn't need to be the NHL, right? It can be the AHL, it can be the ECHL, it can be the IHL, OWHL, could be college hockey, whatever it is. But sit close, and you get the appreciation for speed and power.
Yep.
And I think everybody I've ever taken who's taken the advice has come away and been like, "Okay, that was cool."
Yeah.
And
then you get once you kind of get a sense of how fast they're moving and what the physicality is like. Then if you kind of move up and you're kind of, in the corners or up a little bit, that's when you can really start to internalize the strategy. You can see the plays develop. You can see a person cut here. and like, okay, why'd they do that? Oh, they just got a lead pass. Oh, look at that reverse. So, it's a really interesting sport in that depending on where you are, the things you can get out of the game change pretty dramatically. So yeah, I mean, if you're trying to understand the sport, sit down low, sit up high, sit in the corner, sit center ice, like you'll see a little something different from everywhere, and then kind of figure out what part of the game is most attractive to you.
Yeah. And don't try and figure it out the first night, right?
No.
Like any other sport. Don't worry about all the rules and things. Just go and just kind of soak it in.
Cheer when they cheer.
Yeah, cheer. Yeah. And when everybody else, the best thing that you can do is find somebody who looks like they know what they're talking about and just strike up a conversation. That's hard for a lot of us. People won't believe it, but I'm really an introvert, and it's hard for me to do that. But if you do it, a lot of times you go, "Oh, you're a new fan? Let me talk to you." That's what we did. The Stadium Series. The guy sitting beside me was his first ever hockey game. Was the Stadium Series game.
Okay.
And because it's Carter Finley on those benches and there's no actual seats, he and I were very close. Nice. Very, very close. Like my wife probably would have been jealous we were so close, right? But he was his first hockey game. So I'm like, ask any question anytime. Don't think you're interrupting me. Just, if you see something, ask, right? And he was with a couple people, and we spent a good chunk of the game just kind of walking him through kind of what was going on or why things were stopped and penalties. And it was a wonderful experience. And that's how we grow the game, right?
You absolutely have to do it that way. And that happens everywhere, not just in Raleigh, for those who might look at Raleigh still as an area that really doesn't know much about hockey. I'd like to think we put that to rest finally, but you know what? You still hear people chirping.
They should go look at this year's attendance numbers.
Yeah, they really should, because
Montreal's home opener was 90% capacity and ours was 101.5, I think, or 101.8.
You know the rules. That is the team that shall not be named. Come on now, Brad.
Can I say it in French?
Can
I say it in terrible French?
You can say it however you
I don't know
like.
that I can say it in excellent French, but
so there you go. That's all right.
Le bleu, blanc, soleil, as I would say, the blue, the white, and the salty.
That's perfect.
Isn't it? Doesn't that describe really a good chunk of their fan base?
All of their fan base almost, but
we
won't get too far into that, Wade. So I love how you got here and stuff, but now you've got a great gig with the organization.
I do.
Like, it's fantastic. And I'd love to hear how that comes about, because those positions don't come up very often. And sometimes you got to be Johnny on the spot. Maybe someone wherever. And I'd love to hear how you landed this gig.
All right. I'll give a little bit of backstory, because I think that's kind of important to figure out how I got here, because it is really a series of improbable coincidences for a guy from the tobacco fields of Southern Virginia to end up as one of 32 arena announcers for a National Hockey League team. Like the line doesn't really track very directly there.
It's like an American dream kind of story to me.
It is like Dusty Rhodes and McIndween.
I love it. Fantastic. That's a great name drop and very good impersonation. I love it.
Thank you. So when I was growing up, again, in my tiny little town, there wasn't a whole lot going on, as you can imagine. My mom was a school teacher. She's retired now, but she was an English teacher. And I was a weird little introverted, nerdy kid, very much in my shell. And she decided I needed a hobby and got me started with a program at the middle school and the high school called forensics, which is not crime scene investigation. That's the other forensics.
Oh, right.
It is like a public speaking contest sort of thing. So there's like poetry reading and interpretation of material and prose reading. And that's what she got me into, was prose reading. So basically a animated telling of a story that you're reading.
Nice.
And so I did that, and I liked it, and I was pretty good at it. And I remember her telling me one time that she came to watch one of my competitions when I'm reading my piece. And she said, she's sitting in the back or whatever, and I'm kind of on the front row waiting my turn to get called up to do my deal. And she said that she was looking at me, and I'm there in my, ill-fitting suit, and got my binder of got to read. And I was just sitting there fidgeting. She's like, "Yeah, you're just the kid I see at home." And she said, they called me up, and I go up to the lectern, kind of put my purse piece down. She said, "You just kind of took your jacket and you kind of did one of these, and then it was like you were a completely different person. Like you were confident, and you were projecting." And she's like, "That was really, really interesting to see." So that was kind of my first foray into using my voice in public and having a persona that would work for. So, thanks to my mom and, Ms. Whittle and Ms. Lenhart and all that for kind of sticking with me for the forensics, because it really did lay the foundation for everything that was kind of to come next. It's gonna be a long story. If you ever want to interrupt, feel free.
No,
It's gonna
no, keep going. I'm loving this. I'm loving it.
Go. All right. So I as I mentioned, went to college at William and Mary up in Williamsburg, computer science major. Again, took a little foray out of my shell. I was performing in a Rocky Horror Picture Show shadow cast in college, which was kind of kooky. But I was all out and working on the school newspaper, but I was still very into sports, primarily baseball, but, starting to pick up hockey. And was, again, a computer science major in the mid-90s. So that was when the World Wide Web was kind of in its infancy. So I just kind of my own volition, because I like sports, built the first website for William & Mary's sports information department, putting the schedules online and stuff like that. And took it to the sports information department, like, "Hey, look what I built." And they were like, "Oh, this is really cool. Like, I didn't know we could do that. Thanks." And they're like, we, talking to you, it sounds like you've got a little bit of a public speaking background. Would you like to do any PA announcing? We've got a few sports that don't have anybody. I was like, absolutely, that would be super fun. So I ended up getting, I think my senior year, gigs doing PA for women's soccer, women's basketball, and volleyball. And I was terrible, awful, terrible at it. No idea what I was doing. And I look back and it's just very, very cringeworthy. But I got to make a lot of my mistakes there in a relatively low pressure situation. They didn't have anybody else. It's not like I was, taking somebody's job who actually was good at it. So, I got some reps under my belt in college doing that sort of thing for live sports. Ended up, as I mentioned, going up to the Northeast for a couple of years, coming back to Raleigh. Didn't know a soul, didn't have a thing to do, and decided I needed a hobby. So I took classes and eventually joined a improv comedy group. Group is called Comedy Sports with a Z. And it's kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, if you've ever seen that, but it's got a sports theme around it. So there's like a red team and a blue team and a referee and an announcer, and that's how the improv comedy show gets put on. And I gravitated toward that announcer role and did it for a very, very, very long time. So through the course of doing all those improv shows, which I did a ton of them, before I had kids, I built this comedy arena announcer character through the confines of that show, with a very comedy background and a very comedy approach. I would do the other roles as well, but I did the announcer role a lot. In the late 2000s, so again, I promise there's a point to the story. When my wife and I got married in 2001, and when she moved down and stuff, we were looking for like couples things to do. So one of the things we were like, we should take ice skating lessons. That'll be a nice little couples thing to do. Go out for an hour a week on a Saturday and take learn ice skate lessons. So we did that a couple times. It was super fun. And then kind of time passes, and we have my first daughter. And for Father's Day, I believe in 2006, if my timing is correct, and it's been a long time, my Father's Day present from, my, 2-3-year-old was a empty hockey gear bag with a note that says, "You love the Canes, you know how to skate, go fill this up with gear and learn how to play hockey."
Love it.
Yeah, very observant 3-year-old, man. That's amazing.
She's on top of things, that kid. Her handwriting's suspiciously like my wife's, but I think that's just because they're related. So I did. So I went out to Cool Sports, which is no longer a thing, and got a bunch of hockey gear and took a couple of learn to play hockey camps as an adult, got on a team and started playing. So now I'm playing the sport, not well, but I am playing the sport. Fast forward again to about 2010. I'm back in Raleigh after living a couple years in San Antonio for work, where I'm not skating at all because it's San Antonio. Getting back into playing again, but one of my friends from my improv group, he also is a manager in a local professional wrestling organization. This guy's name's Phil Crew, and his character in the professional wrestling group is like an Arab sheik, and his name is Sheikh Admir Al Akbar, which it literally took me 3 years to get the joke. I just right over my head. Admir Al Akbar, Admiral Akbar, Admiral Akbar. Nice. That's a trap. Yeah, so that's fun for me. And I was a wrestling fan growing up in Virginia. I'd watch World Championship Wrestling, Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and the Midnight Express, and so that I was a big wrestling fan. And so I'd been bugging him a little bit, like, hey, if you guys ever like need a ring announcer or anything, like I've always wanted to do that once. And he's like, yeah, we got a guy. Then one day I'm sitting at home and get a phone call, like, if you can be downtown in 30 minutes, you can be our ring announcer. The guy didn't show up.
Wow.
So I go down there and I do the ring announcing, and apparently I'm pretty good at it because a few shows later, their guy quit. And so now I'm doing professional wrestling ring announcing. I'm working a crowd in a wrestling ring over the microphone live in front of me, introducing the wrestlers and stuff. So that allows me to kind of figure out how to work a live crowd of very, very random people. So that's a good skill that came in. So we fast forward now to 2014, and I'm hanging out on Twitter like I used to do, and I see a post from NC State's club ice hockey team saying, hey, state hockey fans, we're looking for a DJ and a PA announcer. If you're interested, let us know. Just an open call. So I drop him a line. I'm like, hey, I'm Wade. I've done, comedy sports announcing. I've done pro wrestling ring announcing. I play hockey. I'm a fan of the sport, season ticket holder with the Canes. I'd love to do it. So they're like, sure, why not? So I come out and end up doing a year of college hockey with the Cane, with the state fields. So now I'm inside the booth. I'm interacting with the officials. I'm interacting with the scorekeeper. So now I've got that piece of the puzzle in place.
Yeah.
So all of that kind of just mixed up in a witch's brew leads to September of 2015. All right. Here's the scene. I've just gotten fired from my job. So I'm sitting at home doing not really a whole lot while I'm looking for new work. That ended up being fine. It's okay. But I'm just, I'm kind of between jobs at that point, and I'm still a season ticket holder up in section 328. So I go to the Canes are having 2 preseason games. I think that year they might have played one at a neutral site or something. I don't know. They end up 2 preseason games at the end of September. So I take my oldest daughter to our seats and we watch preseason game number 1. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is like a different PA guy. This isn't Brian Hoyle, the guy who's done it for the last 10 years. This is like somebody new. And I didn't love the guy's style, nor did the people sitting around me. So, we're sitting there and we're just being weirdos like we normally do. So come home from that game, and about a decade prior, my comedy sports, now Comedy Works, had done some comedy stuff with the Canes. So we had come out in like the fall of 2006, and we had done like kiss cam bits and penalty box bits and crowd bits, like the planted stuff that you would occasionally see. We don't really do that anymore, but so I had gotten to know a couple people from the team through that. So I come home that night and I'm just like, I wonder what's going on here. So I drop an email to the people I know at the team, like, hey, like, what's up, y'all? You remember me? I'm the guy who did the comedy stuff. Like, I heard a new PA guy. Are you guys like doing tryouts or something? Because, I'm like announcing for state now, and I do comedy sports, and I do pro wrestling, and I play and all that sort of stuff. Go to bed. Wake up the next morning. Hey, Wade, thanks for writing in. We had our tryouts for PA announcer a month ago. Not sure how you missed that.
Oh
the guy you heard last night was the guy who won the tryouts. But he ends the email by saying, but we know hockey's a fast-paced interject sport, so tell you what, you come in today, we'll give you the same tryout we gave everyone else a month ago. And I'm like, well, my unemployed butt can do that.
Yeah.
So I go down there and meet up with the production team. They give me a headset and a script and go down to the penalty box where the mic used to be. And they run me through like a bunch of fake action. Okay, it's a Hurricanes goal. These players, it's a Penguins goal. These players, it's a penalty. It's a power play. Bojangles read, starting lineup, end of game, like all that sort of stuff. I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like a long time. And then they called me, all right, we're done. You bring your stuff back up. Go back up. And hand it over. They're like, cool, we'll be in touch. Sure you will. Go home. A few hours later, I get a call like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, well, my daughter and I were going to go to the second preseason game. And they're like, how would you like to announce that preseason game? We liked what we heard from you today. We'd be interested to see what you sound like in a real game action. And I'm like, yes, I can make this happen. This is something I can make happen.
Since I'm going to be there anyway,
Yeah,
I might as well sit closer to the ice, right?
So I don't tell anybody except my wife and kids. I'm in my season ticket group up in 328. I'm like, hey, you guys got like an extra ticket tomorrow? Sure, yeah, you can use one of my tickets. So the only people who knew I was doing this were my wife and my two daughters. I'm like, you have got to see this. You may never see this again. You have got to be there. So I show up a little bit early. They run me through a little bit more practice. And then there I am on ice level for Canes Penguins preseason. And I am honestly feeling pretty good about it. And, going back to all that history that I gave, I've done improv so long, it's really hard to throw me. Like, if anything weird happens, whatever, I'll deal with it. I've played the sport, so I kind of know the flow of the game. I've worked a crowd for professional wrestling. I've talked to, large groups of people. I've worked college hockey, so I know when the ref comes over, this is kind of what you do. So all the pieces kind of came together in that game. I'm just like, I'm feeling like I wasn't nervous. I'm like, I'm feeling like I'm doing a good job. And so my announcer voice is not really the same as my speaking voice. Like they're close, but if you didn't know it was me, you might not know it was me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there checking Twitter during the game, and all my friends that I'm following on Twitter are like, wow, Friday guy is way better than Wednesday guy. They should hire Friday guy instead. This guy's good. No idea that it was me. Game ends. And my family gets up from 328 around all of my friends. And my wife's like, you know who that was announcing, right? Clearly they didn't miss me because I wasn't there. They weren't like, hey, where's Wade? So then my phone starts buzzing. Was that you? Oh my God. So I take my stuff back. They're like, cool, we'll talk about it over the weekend and let you know something. And then I get a call on Monday saying, you got the job. And then now 359 straight games later, never missed one.
That's
That
awesome.
is an amazing story. I feel a little bad for like the Wednesday guy, but
yeah,
it doesn't
he had
sound
a great
like
voice.
I would say, yeah, it sounds like he was the best of what they got, but maybe he wasn't exactly what they were looking for. And
no, that guy had
karma,
an objectively good voice. Really like better than mine, just from a speaking voice perspective. But I think his background, and I can respect this because I grew up a baseball fan, was in baseball. He was a baseball PA guy. And calling baseball and calling hockey are very, very different approaches. So I think because I'd been a hockey fan for so long, because I played the sport, because I've worked the sport, I had a better idea of like, what does a hockey sound like? And maybe that was the difference. I don't know. But when I got that phone call, like I'm obviously, I'm very chill. Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah, let's talk about that. Hang up. And then I start freaking out. And my family comes running in the room. They're like, what? I was like, I got the job. And they were all, of course, very excited for me. And because I'm a dad, and every once in a while you got to put on the dad hat. And so, I put on my metaphorical dad hat, and I talked to my daughters, who were, like 8 and 11 or something. I don't know. They're young. And I was like, do you know why I got this job? And they're like, because you're awesome. I'm like, no, that really had nothing to do with it. I got that job because I asked. I put myself out there at midnight on a random night, firing an email into the void. 999 times out of 1,000, the answer to that is either, nah, we're good, who are you, or no answer whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
But I just happened to put myself out there at a time where they're like, you know what, maybe we need something a little different. I don't know. And that kind of started the process. So, it's one of those things where improv will breed a fear of failure out of you. So I'm like, what's the worst that'll happen? They'll be like, go away, kid, right? That's fine. So that was the lesson I tried to impart to my daughters, is just like, just go for it. What's the worst that'll happen, right? And so that started now my 9th season with the team.
That's amazing. It's just truly amazing. And it's that lightning in a bottle. It seems
really,
like you've kind of caught lightning in a bottle, and you're just holding on to it, just never let it go, kind of thing. So
I mean, that's one of the reasons that I don't miss games, because I still have this fear that if I miss a game, they're going to find somebody better than me and I'll be replaced. Like, no, I'm not going to give them the chance. I'm not going to give them the chance.
Well, I don't know how much of a chance that there is anyone better than you on this one.
Sure.
I've got questions. Has your style and delivery changed from the very first goal? First of all, I'm sure you remember it. Your first Canes goal. Who was it?
I don't remember it, honestly.
Really?
Because that would have been in a preseason game.
Oh, who cares?
Like I remember kind of snippets, like, after this long, there are a few moments that absolutely stick with me, but by and large, it's all just kind of a tableau. I remember, in that very first game, probably the biggest memory I have from that one is at one point, the penalty clock was malfunctioning because it's preseason and everything breaks. And, I'm sitting there in my script trying to, just be dutiful and figure out what I got to do next. And I hear this voice beside me, like, hey, how much time's left in the penalty? So I kind of look over here, and I'm like, 45 seconds. And then it hits me, I'm talking to Crosby. He's in the box.
Oh,
nice.
Wow. That's wicked.
No, I don't remember who the first goal I announced was. But yes, my style has changed quite a bit. Because, I'm coming in brand new. Who's this rando that we just talked to for the first time a couple weeks ago? Like, and so I was, coached for a while to have a certain style, which is fine. But, I kept trying to, tweak things. Does this sound better? Does this sound better? Did the crowd like this? Oh, they didn't like that. That's a huge mistake. Not going to do that again. And of course, building up trust that I'm reliable, that I'm not going to go rogue. I'm not going to go off script, because it is a very tightly scripted thing. And I didn't realize that when I started the job, just how tightly scripted everything is. And one person kind of freelancing on their own can ruin stuff for a lot of other people. But I think once I built up some trust within the production team, trust within the organization, then I kind of got to, fully flesh out my style of how I approach a game and how I call a game. And I don't know if there is any video footage of that preseason game, or maybe the opening night from the 2015-16 season. But I would imagine if I went back and watched it and listened to it, that I would sound very, very different than I do today.
And so, I've been in a few different barns around the league, and you hear the announcements all the time. Are you advised to just totally poo-poo on the goals for the opposition and then amp up the Canes. Like you said, you were scripted and stuff like that. Is that expected? Because you can like in other barns, like here in Calgary and stuff like that, I've seen enough games when the Canes score, it's like they almost forget to even do the announcement.
Sure,
Like that's how just
Yeah, they scored. So
yeah.
somebody in red scored it, and it's fine.
Like in
Move on.
lacrosse, for instance, in lacrosse in Calgary, when the opposition scores, they say they do a bit where they basically say, "Who cares who scored
Yeah.
the?" You know what I mean? Like they announce
Right.
it. Who
Yeah.
cares? And that's it. That's all they say. They don't even announce their names.
Oh, interesting.
So fire away.
Yeah, there absolutely is a level of professionalism you have to hit, and I believe that very strongly. Like, I've pushed the line a couple times, especially early in my career, and then realized that was a dumb thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I believe that in the official NHL rules, and it's been a while since I checked, you might not even actually have to announce the visiting team goals, like in the official rules. But I do. And so kind of the way I think about it is I'm going to announce their goal as factually correct as I can.
Right.
It's not going to be big. It's not going to be excited. It will be professional. And so when that contrasts with how I announce a Canes goal for the home team, it sounds much flatter because, I get significantly bigger with the Canes style. But, the other team scored. That is a factual event that happened. It is my job, first and foremost job is to get the names right. Second of all, to convey information into the arena so people know what's going on. For like the team introductions, that's when I can play with it a little bit more because the teams aren't out there. It's the game hasn't started yet. So that's where kind of the bit of really kind of very quietly announcing the visiting team name. Boo, you're Carolina Hurricanes. Yay. That's where that came from. And because it was something I did once. I'm like, oh, I could make this bigger. I could make this bigger. I could make this bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to make sure that I'm giving a professional presentation every time I get out there. But I'm in a dual role in that I am a part of the game. I am a fact giver for the audience, but I'm also on the entertainment crew for the home team, and that's who they're here to have a good time at their home game. And I've had people come up to me, and I do sincerely appreciate it, who are like, oh man, I went to, NHL Arena X and, their PA sucked. You're so much better. I'm like, well, that they probably don't suck. Otherwise they wouldn't have the job. They have a very different style than I do. And, you're probably supposed to like your home PA announcer better than the ones on the road. Like they're doing stuff for their crowd. Their crowd is not Raleigh. Their crowd is wherever they happen to be. Their crowd has their own traditions, their own fan base, their own expectations. So it's not really a question of, am I better or worse than anyone else? It's all in the eye of the beholder. It's, are we giving our fans the type of experience that they're going to want, they're going to come back to, they're going to talk about. And so through trial and error, I've, developed a style that I think works really well for here. I don't know if it would work in Toronto. I don't know if it would work in, Seattle. I don't, I like to think that a lot of what I do is transferable, but, I am a Caniac. I've been here since 1999. And so the things that I think the crowd here wants have been so just kind of embedded in my soul that that's what comes out when I talk.
I have to say,
Sorry,
Brad. It's just a quick comment. Brad, Wade, I have to tell you, hearing you now compared to the voice that I hear watching the games.
Sure.
There is no one that would think you here listening to us in the Storm Cellar is the guy doing the voices. And you can tell the enthusiasm and professionalism in your voice when you're doing those announcements. But there's people who are listening to us now, they might not believe that you're the guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's that good. So I just wanted to put that out there. Brad, your question.
Real quick, I'll piggyback on that before Brad gets to it. And the reason for that is that Wade the announcer is a character. It's a character I put on. I am not Wade the announcer just kind of every day when I'm coding, for my day job or whatever. There's a lot of me in that character, but that is a character. That character speaks in a certain way. They have a certain outlook on the world. They have a certain attitude, a certain swagger, whatever. That's that character. And through so many years of improv, I've learned to put on and take off characters very seamlessly. So when I'm walking around in my my gimmicked up PA jersey, like I'm in character. That is Wade the announcer there, and Wade the announcer is not necessarily going to do things the same way as Wade the person in his house, and so that makes it easier. Like I can have the announcer character. The announcer character talks like this, and that's kind of how I manage that.
Love it.
I gotta say though, what I want to do is hear some. I want to see Wade at his day job typing. He shoots, he scores. That fucking works, baby.
I will do a bit sometimes. I can't pull it out too often because my family, who has to live with me for good or for bad, will try to murder me. But sometimes if I see people in the kitchen or whatever, and like my wife's microwaving something or whatever, I will kind of sneak up behind her and go, 1 minute remaining in the meatloaf. And they just roll their eyes. They're done with it.
That's amazing.
That is
and for people who don't know, I know that you get this question, I think, a lot. 1 minute remaining in the period. For those who don't know, NHL rulebook 34.1.
Yeah.
He has to announce it. It's in the rulebook. If you don't, is that a 2-minute minor for Wade?
No, they'll just yell at us.
Opinion? That'd be awesome.
They'll just yell at us.
I was gonna say it'd be cool if you were in like somewhere in some record book of like Wade Minter got 2 minutes for not calling.
No. It is interesting though, and but like anything else, there's a story. There's very much a reason why my 1 minute is 1 minute remaining in the period, and it is not 1 minute remaining in the first period, 1 minute in the second period, or everybody's kind of got their own one. It's because in my first few games, and I'm still trying to figure out, I probably at least 3 times I said the wrong period. And I was like, you know what? There's a way for me to solve this. Yeah. I can just say the same thing every time, and I won't have to worry about being wrong. So that's where the same mistake that
Tuukka Rask once made when he was coming off the ice, and he was like, "Oh, I thought this was,
yeah."
So, the question I really have for you was, not that I think there really is, but do you speak with other PA announcers from other, like, is there a PA arena announcer group chat that you're a part of or anything cool? Or like, not that it would go that far, but like, do you know some of the other announcers? Like, do you guys ever say, hey, I had this idea. Do you guys think that this would work? Or, you know what I mean? Like, do you ever bounce ideas off of each other, or just kind of get to know each other just from just from the professional? Because you obviously don't travel with the team.
It's a small fraternity.
So it's not like you're going to be working with them necessarily, right. But at the same time, you're one of 32 in the NHL, right? And 32 in the AHL. It's a very small community.
Right. Yeah. We are the very definition of non-competitive with each other. No one's going to be like, I want to go see a hockey game tonight. I would go watch the Canes, but that PA announcer, Wade, he's terrible. I'm going to go watch a New York Rangers game instead. Like, with the exception of maybe LA Anaheim and the 3 teams up in New York, you're not going to be like, I'm going to go watch a different game because the other PA is better. So, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And, we do that from each other pretty regularly. There's some that I'm closer with, some that I haven't met. And, I'd say we do less kind of trading tips and tricks, though I watch a lot of games and I'll listen. I'm like, okay, I heard something that probably wouldn't work for me, or I heard something, I could take that and twist it, or I heard something, I'm just going to straight up steal that. But yeah, I'd say I'm good friends with Andrew Ember down in Florida, Ryan Mill in Pittsburgh, John Trottier in Ottawa, Mike Ross in Toronto, Paul McCann in Nashville. Those are probably the Jeff K down in Dallas. So yeah, we'll occasionally text each other or message or something. A lot of times it's like, hey, Jeff K, you just called up this AHL player. They're playing in Raleigh tonight. How do you say this person's name? Like, can you send me a voice memo or spell it out for me? Because the NHL does put out a pronunciation guide, and it's terrible.
It's funny how often it's wrong, right?
It's very, very wrong. So, I don't, when I'm doing research for a game, and I do research for every game, I will contact other PA people. I do a lot of YouTube, but I don't really refer to the NHL pronunciation guide.
And you know what? That's just a great sign of respect amongst the group, but for you as well, right? Because there is nothing worse, and I hear it on play-by-play guys, than people who purposely mispronounce names. It makes me crazy. And it's just a sign of respect. You know what I mean? And I can really appreciate that you do this. Brad, I want to do something. I want to do something interesting before we get to talking about the games.
It's
very,
your
very
show, sir.
well, it's our show. It's our show.
It's our show. It's
Wade,
the Caniac show.
Wade, I need to know. I have a guess at what the answer is, but I need to know who is the favorite Kane name to say for you. There's got to be some sort of personal enjoyment that you really just love it. I have a guess at who it is.
You're probably
but I'd
wrong.
like to hear it. Fire away.
Yeah, no, I love all my children equally. That's not the answer you're looking for.
And they're all young enough to be our kids.
They are young enough to be our kids. It's. I'll have a segue before I answer that question because I know we're running out of time and I want to burn all of it I possibly can. One of the things that I do, and I didn't really know I was doing it until I was told, is that once I come up with a pronunciation for a name that I like or a style of announcing it, I'm very, very consistent. Like it doesn't really change. And what that's led to, and it took me years to realize this, and I had to get a couple videos from the crowd to really understand it, is that when I'm saying a name after a goal or something like that, the people in the crowd, not all of them, but a significant portion of them are saying the names along with me in the exact same way that I say them.
We do this at home too, sir.
And
I
that
do it too.
just blows my mind that, I was like, is that really happening? But I think giving people a hook to grab onto, and this all comes from professional wrestling. I'd watch the great ring announcers like Howard Finkel and Gary Michael Capetta, and the last thing they say when they're introducing somebody is the name. That's the pop. That's the stinger. That's the hook. And they had a very distinctive way of saying names. And so I kind of internalized that. And I do that with the Canes players so that if I'm announcing somebody, like the whole crowd can say the name along with me. And that's really rewarding for me to see that something I'm doing has that big of an effect on that many people. It's very humbling to see that. But I've come up with I'd like to think a lot of fairly unique ways to say names. I've got Teuvo Teravainen, that's a favorite. I've got Sebastian Aho, which was kind of the OG, the original one that I really started playing with. Jacob Slavin was up there too. But I would say right now, my favorite name to announce, especially if it's during 3 stars, is Antti Ranta.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Because I can really hold that note. Like I can, like if it's a big deal, like first star of the game, or you get to shout out or something, I can really pull that one out. So there's the kind of Antti, and then I get that big growly Ranta. So that's my favorite as of this moment. Next week it can change.
That is so great. So I just like you have put yourself out there a great many times. I don't know if Brad's willing to, but I'm going to put myself out there doing my favorite Wade Minter that I do at home every time they say it. And let me tell you, you've had a great man. This leads perfectly into talking about the team because you've been saying his name a lot lately. All right. So here it goes.
Let's hear it.
Teuvo Teravainen.
Good. That's good. That's good.
I love that name. I love the way you deliver it. I love everything about it. My wife looks at me like I'm a nutcase, but I do every voice with you. Carolina Hurricanes, go! Like it's just brilliant what you do. It's magnificent. Brad, I don't know if you have a name that you want to try for Wade or whatever. Like
I'll be judging you.
Hey, we all know I have a face for radio and a voice I always say is for a librarian. Like, not good, but
okay, fair enough.
Andrei Svechnikov.
I did have somebody tweet at me one time. They were a visiting fan who was watching a game, and Teuvo was having a good game. And I very distinctly remember this person being like, I hate the PA guy at the Canes. Every time he says Teravainen's name, he sounds like Bullwinkle. I'm like, you know what? I could see that, honestly. Like, I think you might have a point there. So I
He
changed my
must have been
profile
younger
picture to
because
Bullwinkle for a couple days.
the older guys would be like, Bullwinkle was cool. Like,
Yeah,
that's a compliment. That's
that's
just
a
like,
that's a
not
it's just like,
compliment in my
I know he's
eyes.
trying to burn me, but I can see it. I can see it.
So, okay, thank you for humoring me, Wade. I had to do it, and you're right. Everyone does it. Everyone joins in, and that's how you know you're doing a great job. Let's talk about our Canes. They're back home, which is obviously good for you. It keeps you busy. And I don't know. It was diametrically opposite of what we saw on the road trip, these games. Like it was
because
crazy
Wade
to
wasn't on the
watch.
road.
Well, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. But it was like these last two games was more like Canes hockey that it was expected. You know what I mean? And I don't know how you guys feel, but there was, I think Brad will back me up. We text each other throughout every game, and there was a lot less wailing and gnashing of teeth between the two of us watching these games. It looks like they're on board now, and there was a fantastic difference in the team when Svetch was uh, put into the lineup. What are your guys' takes on what we've seen, especially the last two games?
Hockey's such a weird sport, and I say this as someone who's watched a lot of it, who's played a lot of it. There's some games when you're not in sync, and there's some games when you can't not score, right? I do think that the team definitely gets better with Svetch, and he's certainly easing back in. But just having him out there, I think, lets everyone else get slotted into good spots. It lets them show off their creativity. He can make people around him better. I don't think anybody would say they saw the Teuvo Teravainen goal scoring tear coming on, but good for him. He had a rough season last year dealing with injuries. He's traditionally been known as a pass first sort of player, and I think he even mentions that when you talk about his scoring. It's like, I'm not used to this. But a strong Teuvo Teravainen makes everyone around him exponentially better. And if he's finishing, now the opponents have to respect his shot, not just his pass. So it's good to see all that starting to come together. Coach Brendan Moore was like, I know everybody was ticked off on the road, but I liked what I saw. And, he has said that before and quite often proven to be right. Slow starts. He's just like, I don't know why everybody's freaking out. Like we didn't get the win, but we're playing the way I wanted to play. So it's good to see everything kind of coming together over the last couple of games, and hopefully that can continue on yet another road trip.
And Wade, to that very statement, it was something that I was thinking about bringing up with Rod during the road trip. There was a lot of gymnastics about his feeling about what was going on. I mean, we heard him during the games, after the games, calling some of those games the worst that he's ever seen them play. And it caught me by surprise after Thursday night's game when he said, yeah, I thought we played pretty well,
Right.
on the road trip. And it was like, hold the phone. That's a little bit of revisionist history based on, and it's those emotions during, like when they've got the mic in his face in the middle of the second and things are not going well. You could see where that emotion kind of comes out. And it's like Brad has always said about him and his enjoyment of the game. Don't ask me now. If we're going to do an interview, ask me later when the emotion is gone.
Yeah.
And he just, like I said, it was strange to hear him turn around and say, yeah, I thought we did pretty good on the road trip. And I was like, that kind of floored me a little bit because it didn't look anything like Hurricanes hockey, which we've actually come to appreciate. And now we kind of hold the bar a little bit higher for the team. You know what I mean? Like, this is what we expect out of them. So it was just a strange thing.
And for him saying that, he clearly said, something to the effect of, we've got to have all the guys buying into the system, right? Which to me says somebody's not buying in, which is a problem when the system is what's been the success, right? Because we've said before, right? Aho is a 40-goal scorer on almost every other team because he's not expected to have as much defensive responsibility, right? Natchez, Svechnikov, those are guys who are probably 40-goal scorers on 25, 30 other teams in the league. So to bring in only a couple of veterans and not have everybody buying in is a big deal. That being said, and not to bag on the Sharks, right? They're 0-7-1. They have a .063 winning percentage, which was very similar to my NC State GPA. But
hey, D's get degrees, buddy.
if they needed that game, right? I mean, Tavo went off. Wonderful. We actually gave the stick of the game to Ranta because it was the first game where I felt like our goalies were in control start to finish versus starting strong and then having a lapse and then finishing strong, or starting strong and getting softer. Not knocking them. I mean, we're nitpicking, right? They're one of the best teams in the league. But it was the first time where I went, Ronta was just sharp, for a full 60, right? Not for 58 minutes, not for 55 minutes, 60 minutes. Obviously, Tavo could have gotten stick. But you needed that kind of opponent where you could kind of get back to, look, we should beat these guys. So let's just simplify, play the way we want to play, and then that should help create that buy-in, right? So if anybody's still hanging out, you go, look, when we do the things we're supposed to, we all know I'm not a big fan of TA. That's no secret. I think everybody who knows me and heard me talk about hockey for more than 10 minutes knows that. He actually played defense the other night. I was impressed. He made a couple defensive plays. Orlov did not look completely lost, which is what we've been saying. Give him 10 games. It takes a while to take this level of responsibility that the Canes expect other defensemen. Like, so you see the machine starting to, the grease is starting to get in there. Everything's starting to flow a little easier. And they're going to need that, right? With the way things are coming up. I mean, they're second in the Metro, so no big problem there. And you have some potentially tough games. Philly's been playing well. You have New York and both New York teams. I meant the Rangers and then the Islanders. But so for this week, you have 3 New England teams you're going to have to beat. Well, not New England, the Mid-Atlantic teams. But you're going to need that, right? Philly, you should beat them. New York's going to be a tough game. Shesterkin hasn't been that Vezina quality goalie he has been. You can get things by him, right? The Islanders, Sorokin, you just never know. Like when Sorokin's on, he was going to be my fantasy pick, for goalie. I ended up getting Shesterkin because he was available. I couldn't believe it. Wow. But of course, he's gotten me like 4 points or something. He's not been playing as well.
No.
So
that is great. Yeah.
So Caniacs, you can thank me that New York is not playing as well as they have been because But long story short, it looks like that game gave them a little breathing room to get a few things figured out. They went 12-6. I hope we're done with 11-7. I don't like it in general on a regular basis. I didn't like the way it was being utilized with Tony on the ice and Chatfield sitting more. If you're going to do 11-7, put Tony on the power play and nothing else, right? And Chatfield made multiple plays in the Kraken and the Sharks games, in part because he has wheels. He knows when to pinch, and he doesn't get a lot of points, but he also can get back and cover if it's his mistake or his partner's. And that's huge. So,
yeah, the understated hero type player for me is Chats. Chatfield is so ridiculously fast, and it's a crime when he's not on the ice playing D because, I mean, you know what? Yeah, he just like every defenseman will make mistakes, but there's no questioning his speed, his effort. He's at it's fantastic. And we're dropping names all over the place, but perhaps we can do that through our one of my favorite sections. We haven't done this segment at all this season.
Yeah.
And Wade, we here in the Storm Cellar, we have a little segment called the Storm Report, and we look at the players or aspects of the game that fit into 3 categories. They are the tropical depression, which need the most work or really disappointing type thing. Then we've got the tropical storm. They are either on the way up or on the way down. They're playing okay, but just a few tweaks. And then there's the Hurricanes, and the Hurricane is simply who is lights out on this team doing fantastic work. So that's kind of how we do it. And Brad, I'll get you to go first. Let's work our way up.
Right.
Let's start with the tropical depression, and we'll give Wade a chance to, hear us out, and it just let him get the feel of what we're doing. Right? Yeah.
For me, I think it's kind of easy. Our penalty kill has to be better. That's my tropical depression, and it's not terrible. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still okay. But this team has been in the Rod Brindamore era a defensive first, low scoring. You're going to win a lot of 3-2, 2-1 kind of games, but it's fun. Not like the old Traps game where it was 2-1 and boring as all could be. And we're not seeing that. In fact, before when they came back from the West Coast, I think they had 27 goals for and 30 against in 5 games. I mean, even now, they're averaging 3.89 goals against and only 3.67 goals for. The PK is at 71.4%. Maybe we'll reach out to the Kane Stats brand and see when's the last time the Hurricanes PK was at 71%. Because I bet it's been a long time. I bet it's been years since it's been that bad. And we're far enough in the season, like one bad game would drop that, but my goodness, it's not been good. The good news is the net PK. So for folks listening, that takes into account shorthanded goals, is a whopping 82.9% because we've had 4 shorties, I think.
4 shorties,
which is amazing. So for me, I got to give it to, just in general, the penalty kill. Those guys, it's early in the season. It's probably a lot of communications issues. I've seen some forwards do some things where I thought they gave up on the play a little bit. Those things have to get corrected, but I expect that they will.
So for me, and it's gonna sound harsh, there's some low-hanging fruit for our tropical depressions that I'm leaving out there, but this is going to be harsh for me until the last game. It was the goaltending, partly because of injuries, partly because in the past 2 years we have been spoiled by always knowing that no matter how, and with a great defense, if there's a mix-up, if there's a breakdown somewhere, we knew that Anderson and Aranta and Kochetkov all were there to provide the huge save that you need. You know what I mean? Like, they were able to provide it. And at the start of this season, it just seemed like there was some soft goals. And here's the funny thing. I don't blame the goaltenders for any of them. They were humongous defensive lapses that left guys right in front of the net, completely uncovered. Too many, breakaways given and stuff like that. It was all on the D, just lapsing and giving. But on the other end of that, we've come to trust Anderson and Ranta. And I love them to death, right? And I know that they can step up and make humongous saves, but it wasn't there. And it's overly critical for me. Brad will tell you that I love them, love everything about them, but they just weren't there. And I like that. That's leaving the low hanging fruit out there, because there is low hanging fruit, to be sure.
All right, I guess it's my turn. As a team employee, hashtag, I'll take a slightly different take on this, because I don't want to overstep my bounds. I would say that for me, it's being able to score first. That is an area where when we do, we generally have the opportunity at that point to kind of put the foot on the gas, play our game, play loose. If the other team scores first, or first and second, I think we're in a chase mode, and that hasn't been working out great for anybody. So I feel like to really get back to Rod Brindamore hockey, to get back to Canes hockey, if you can jump out early on some of these teams, break their spirit, you you'll end up in a better position. So I think, getting to a spot where you're consistent enough that you can score first on a regular basis makes everything easier and better for the team.
Especially the defense and the goalies, which is, I think that's a great point.
It is a fantastic point. Brad, who is our tropical storm, or who or what is the tropical storm?
So I kind of went back and forth about this, and people might disagree. At the moment for me, and this is partially because we don't know what nagging injury he still has, Sebastian Aho, not playing terribly at all. Don't get me wrong. He's got 6 points in 11 games at this point. He missed a couple of games, so he has, I think, 7 or 8 games played. But he's not taking face-offs. RBA said he's 100%, but something must still be tweaked with him. So it could just be a little injury stuff. But, Seth Jarvis and Jesperi Kotkaniemi have been kind of leading the way with Marty Necas and Tara Vinen. Aho, we always proclaim him to be the superstar, and he'll get there. So that's why he's a tropical storm. It's building, like he's going to be there. But we need our most likely, our top superstar to be the superstar. So
great call. And I would echo that. He seems, is it just me? He seems out of place when he's not at center. I don't, it just feels, wrong, and it's been a while. And you're right. It's perhaps the injury. That's a great take, Brad. For me, the tropical storm on the team right now. And Brad, you brought this up last week, and you know what? No, I'm not going to give it to him. I'm going to take Bernsey. I'm going to take Bernsey just because, again, comparing last season where he was in on every goal Carolina scored, like seriously, he was on every frigging goal. It was unbelievable. It was great. This time around, he's short on points. He's not getting the puck right through. He's still playing great, but there's a lot of his shots that are being blocked. He's getting his stick lifted at the last second. That didn't happen last year. He could, Connor McDavid an entire line and go in and score a goal. Like, he was just that adept with the puck. He was great. You know what I mean? Just fantastic. But this season, it looks a little off. And I don't know if that's a matter of other teams have figured him out. Maybe. I don't know. But he's still playing great. I love his D. I love his effort out there and his influence on the team. That he's got an influence on the team that helps lift everyone up. You know what I mean? It lifts everyone up, and that's what you just love to see. So he's my guy there. I think as a tropical storm, it's Mr. Burns. Wade.
Yeah, for kind of a player on the rise, I'm going with Marty Necas. He had a rough contract year a couple years ago. He's been flashes of great, flashes of average, but I really feel like his confidence is there now. He's the guy who feels like he can call a game, like we saw in overtime. He's playing with a lot of confidence, and I think now that he's believing in himself and that the game's coming along, we're going to see a lot of really good things from him for the rest of the season.
Love it. And so now we get to the Hurricanes. You don't have to put them in categories 1 through 5. Hurricanes are all devastating and awesome all at the same time. And Wade, we're going to let you go first on this one.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I just would change things up a little bit.
I
don't want to take everything, take away the opportunities. You're the guest. Who's the Hurricane? Who's playing at Hurricane force right now?
Jacob Slavin. Sitting where I sit now, way up on press row, you see just how good and how smooth he is, and it looks effortless. In my humble opinion, not that they asked my opinion, I think he's up there as one of the best defensemen in the league. He doesn't win the Norris Trophy because he doesn't score, which is not part of the Norris Trophy, but who's asking?
Yeah.
Anytime there's danger and he's on the ice, he's going to find a way to stop it. And we're all on headsets in the production team talking about the game, what's happening, what do we need to know? And so many times it's just like, oh my God, who did that? Oh, it's Slavo. Like it's expected, like to play at that level for as long as he has and for as consistently as he has. You don't see that really. I mean, hockey's an inconsistent game, and the fact that he's been able to do this year after year, game after game, and still does it and still just makes it look like a routine play. I think that he's the straw that stirs the drink on the defense as far as I'm concerned.
No question. No question. Brad, you're up.
I'm glad Wade said Jacob because I was going to, and now I get to pick somebody else.
There you
but
go.
Slavin's got 3 goals. He made the change to a sick. He might be in Norris contention if this keeps up. He's got 7 points and he's a +5 in 9 games. But that frees me up to tout my boy Jesperi Kotkaniemi is on fire. He's averaging a point per game. He's got 4 goals and 5 assists already. This is the guy who the team who shall not be named was like, oh, we're going to get in, Christian Dvorak, and he's going to be better. And it's not working out for you guys, just if you're listening.
Not at all.
But I'm happy. But KK right now, I mean, so Jarvis Kotkaniemi, Natchez, and Aho are all a point per game guy right now, right? And I just said Aho's not my Hurricane, right? Because I expect that it's not just points for him, but he's got 1 goal, and I can see him getting better. If Kotkaniemi continues to play at this level, that contract at 8 years is an absolute steal. So that's my boy.
Without question. And for me, and I'm glad those names were selected. And we have a plethora of Hurricanes, the way I see it right now. And while I would love to reproduce the Wade impersonation with my selection for Hurricane, to me, it's Jarvie, and I've always enjoyed his play. He became one of my heroes on Hall of Fame night with the hat trick against the team that shall not be named. I hucked my hat out there, my Stanley Cup 2006 hat. I threw that one out there. But this season, you see a real substantial difference in the work that he did in the offseason. He is faster, grittier. The passes that he made twice to Teuvo on those goals were glorious, well thought out. He showed like he's been in this is his 3rd season in the league. He's showing he knows the game better. The game is slowing down for him, I think, is really probably the best way to describe it. It's slowing down for him. He's got the acumen, and those passes are right on the money.
And he's fearless.
And he is fearless, and he's been crushed a couple of times. Like, he's taken some big hits, and you could tell that the muscle that he's put on is protecting him in that regard, and it's letting him play the game that he wants to play, that we all love to see him play. This has been a fantastic Raymond Gets to Geek Out episode, because Wade, I've wanted to have a chance to talk with you forever. And the fact that we were able to land you, it's just great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your ridiculously busy life to share it with us here in the Storm Cellar. Just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what I do. Hope to do it for a long time. And, if there's anything that I can kind of, convey to folks, it's, just chase the dreams, try some stuff. Worse the good news, you fail. Who cares?
Send somebody an email at midnight. You just don't know where it's going to go, right?
You don't know.
Yeah. Thank you. We'd love to have you back sometime too, because we've gotten some feedback. People like to hear like the day to day. So like, at some point we'd love to maybe have you back and go through like, game day, right? I get to the rink. Mm-hmm. These are kind of the things that go on and all, because I think people enjoy those kind of things. And, we try and keep things kind of concise, right? An hour-ish is good. People can listen to us when they're working out, drive to work, that kind of thing. but I feel like there's more there. Like, I feel like you probably still got stories to tell.
There absolutely is. Yeah, 100%, Brad. You're right.
So thank you for being here. I'm glad we were able to get this worked out, because it's been a pleasure. It really,
thanks
really
for
has.
having me.
So, Brad, we have talked about so much, right? We had Wade in, the Howard Finkel of the Carolina Hurricanes. I had to drop that name in there for you because you're a wrestling guy, and I loved your impersonation, by the way, Wade. We had impersonations. You and I got our kicks in there. We talked about winning play style. We even did the Storm report, but there's something missing. What is it?
Go Canes!
Go Canes!
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.